down this wall, eventually leading to the dissolution of the Soviet Union. This is a fire that burns here in the state of Iowa, and that will burn on Monday night when people go out to caucus and to exercise their judgment. So our responsibility is to carry the torch and preserve the sacred fire of liberty. You will have an ability to do that Monday night. I will take that torch into the remaining states and continue with this nomination battle. Ultimately, this is a responsibility we should not shy away from. This is a responsibility that we should welcome, because if not now, when? And if not us, who? I will be somebody, with your support on Monday night, I will be a candidate that will sweep us to victory, just like we did in Florida in record fashion. But more importantly than that, as a leader, I'll always be somebody that you can be proud of. And most importantly, as the next president of the United States, I will get the job done. I will turn this country around, and I will not let you down. Thank you all. God bless you. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. All righty. Thank you. Wonderful. All right, does anyone have a question? Yes.
So I'm a volunteer for Washington State. I flew in the middle of the country to help get you elected. My governor, Jay Inslee, lets my state burn with the BLM riots and Antifa riots. And I'm just wondering, as an executive, what could you have done different other than tweeting from your basement, law and order, law and order, law and order?
Right, so the question's about the BLM riots, and you saw that happening all across the country in the summer of 2020. Remember, they were telling you before the BLM riots that you were not allowed to leave your house. I remember in Florida, people are at the beach, they're playing golf, and they were getting absolutely ripped by the media, by these public health bureaucrats and everything. And it was almost like they just expected you to just isolate indefinitely. And that was what they were saying in April and May of 2020. Then all of a sudden, you know, you have these George Floyd riots and the protests. And so you have massive numbers of people going out. And so these public health bureaucrats, the Fauci type people, were asked, well, wait a minute, isn't this bad for COVID if there's all these groups of people? And what they said was, well, we think that protesting against racial discrimination is important for public health. We don't think that those gatherings are bad for COVID, but you're not allowed to protest lockdowns. You're not allowed to protest anything else. And that's when you realize that this whole thing, these people were total frauds. I mean, it was such a joke when they were doing that. So that kind of led into it. And I honestly believe, had Trump and Fauci not plunged the country into lockdown, I don't think we would have had riots at that scale. I think there was a lot of stuff pent up, and I think that it kind of went. Now, once it happened in Minneapolis, I called out the National Guard in Florida. We deployed state law enforcement. We said, you're not burning down anything in Florida. And sure enough, nothing happened. And that's what you have to do. You, as the president, you absolutely have the right to prevent this type of rioting. You know, Bush 41 sent people to LA in '92. So Trump could have done it. He refused to do it. Why? I think he was worried that the press would attack him. And he was concerned about, you know, re-election and everything. It's the same reason he didn't fire Fauci, because he was scared of the blowback. That's not leadership. Leadership is taking action to protect the liberty of the people, to protect public order. And I can tell you this, you have those BLM riots, when I'm president, we will go in and we will put an end to them. We're not going to let the country burn down.
How can you balance the budget?
Well, you know, you got two people that are responsible for appropriating the money here. You know, Tom Massey has, he's got a lapel pin he made. That's the national debt clock like they have in New York City. And he made that, and he wears it on the House floor, I think to kind of shame his colleagues into stopping them from squandering our kids' and grandkids' future. He gave me one of those, and I was thinking about wearing it, but I was like, you know what? Can you do one for me with the state of Florida's debt clock. Because if you did that, it wouldn't be counting up, it would be counting down, because we paid off 25% of our state's debt. And part of the reason we were able to do that is because I vetoed billions of dollars of spending as governor. And you've got to be willing to use your veto pen, especially if they're putting, really grotesque products on your desk that are spending way too much money. And the thing is they're spending your money on things like promoting transgenderism in Bangladesh. I mean, when I saw that one, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So they're bankrupting the country. As president, obviously I'll have budgets that are leaner. I'll be willing to veto, but I think you need more structural reform. I mean, I think you need a balanced budget requirement in the Constitution. I think you need term limits for members of Congress so that they can cycle in and out. I think you need a line item veto for the president. I'm able to veto as governor these individual things. Imagine if they put that on the desk, how much pork you could veto out of the budget. So I think, and states are working on proposing these and getting these going to put them in as reforms. And I think I'll lend the bully pulpit to that, and we'll start to speak. I don't think Congress would enact that, but you can do it through the states as well. So that's what we're going to do, because I think even if we decided, all of us here, yeah, we can balance the budget next year, right? 5, 10, 15 years, that the incentives are to continue doing this. This didn't just happen for no reason. This is the incentives in Washington. So you need some of these reforms to be able to change the incentives, and I think that's really important. You guys want to weigh in?
Just, can you tell them about New York versus Florida? Yeah.
Well, this just shows you that this government is out of control. So Florida, we have millions of more people than New York does now. And yet our budget is half the size of New York's budget. The number of state bureaucrats per capita in Florida is the lowest in the United States of America. The cost per employee is the lowest per capita in the United States of America. And so that's just but yet when people move from New York to Florida, they say, oh my gosh, you have better roads, better infrastructure, better services, better education. So it just shows we're doing this at half the footprint in terms of the size of government and the cost of government. So much of what the federal government is doing with its bureaucracy is not essential. We could reduce it in half and not miss a beat with the things that we actually need to do for this country. So we are going to go in, we're going to rein in this administrative state, rein in this bureaucracy, both in terms of its size and the scope, and restore the government to its rightful owners, which is we, the American people. Where are you from?
I'm from the West Coast.
What are you doing here? You what? Okay, well, first of all, you're learning to spew propaganda, okay? So you should stop that. All right, do we have any Iowans who have a question? Yes, Iowan? Okay. Great question. Well, what we've done in Florida is, one, we back the men and women of law enforcement, and we support what they have to do. What they were doing during the whole BLM stuff was attacking the police, and it made it so that you're going to risk your life, and then all of a sudden the politicians are going to impugn you. That's why we've had so many of these police officers move to Florida, from Seattle, from Philly, from Chicago, from New York, because they're treated horribly. So we treat them well. We understand it's important to do. And I think that's something that as president, because if you think about it, part of this started with Obama. He would attack the police, and that created a lot of real negative static for them ever since. We're going to support them. It's very important for our communities. It's important to do. The other thing is these prosecutors. They get elected, and then they don't enforce the law. San Francisco had one, LA, Chicago, Philly, all these places. that's really violating the civil rights of their citizens. Like, you don't have the authority to just simply ignore laws you disagree with. And so we're going to ensure that those are enforced, and we're going to ensure that we hold those folks accountable. And we're also not going to support any policies that are releasing dangerous people back onto the street. And the fact of the matter is, when you eliminate cash bail, when you do some of the things that have been done in some of these states, the results have been disastrous. So this is not rocket science. Woke ideology and leftist policies fail. It makes society less safe. Our policies work, and you will be able to raise kids in peace and security. And we need that from coast to coast.
Yep.
Great question. So what are you going to do to strengthen the military? I think there's two things. One, I mean, I'm the only veteran running for president who's been in. And so, and I just remember that so I served in Iraq during, when it wasn't great, but even during that time, people would sign up to the Marines, they'd sign up to the Army knowing they were going to get sent to Iraq. And yet people still did it. Now we have the worst recruiting since the end of the Vietnam War and the end of the draft. And I think it's because the military and civilians who oversee the military have injected a social agenda into the military. You have woke stuff, you've got political stuff, and that is terrible for morale, and it's just detracting from the mission. So day one as commander-in-chief, we rip it all out and throw it in the trash can. We're going to focus the military on pursuing the mission first. And I think you got to get that right, because that having a positive culture, it will cause more people to want to join. You'll be able to retain more people, and you'll just be more effective. I have active duty people, and they've got to be quiet about it because they can't say a lot publicly, but they'll whisper to me saying they've done more DEI training in the last year than actually training for their core competency in the military. And I'm just thinking to myself, how is that acceptable? I can tell you China is not doing it that way, and they wouldn't do it that way. So that's that. And then the other thing is where are our threats, and where's our I think our primary threats to security are, one, our southern border is a threat, and we will deal with that. But I think our primary threat from a foreign threat is China. Yes. Their economy is big, almost as big as ours. Their military is big, almost as big as ours. They have global ambitions. And so we need to rebuild the military with an eye on deterring their ambitions in the Indo-Pacific. And so we have a plan to do that, to build up the Navy and to be able to deter that. We have time to do it, but we don't have a lot of time. So we'll go in there, and that'll be one of the things that we do. But I think you got to fix the culture. You can't just pour money into the military if you haven't fixed the culture, and I will fix the culture. And the truth of the matter is, this began under Obama, but it continued under Trump. He didn't have control over his own cabinet secretaries. And so it continued, and now with Biden, it's on steroids. And so this has been a huge, huge problem. We'll reverse that on day one. So the question is about school choice. And so Governor Reynolds has been a champion on that here in Iowa. We have universal school choice in Florida. And first, I mean, we just have to say, this has been a debate in this country for the last 25 plus years about whether choice is good or not. Because, on the left, they will say choice is not good. They will say that it somehow drains resources from public schools, and therefore it hurts education overall. First of all, my view is the money should follow the student, not the system anyways. I mean, that's really how you'd want to do it. But we definitely can look in Florida. I mean, so, you in Florida, a parent can go to obviously your local school in the school district that's public, but you can usually now have choice within your school district, a number of different choices, which we didn't have 25 years ago. You can go to a charter school, which is a public school but not controlled by the school district, or you could take a private scholarship and go to a private school. So that is any parent now in Florida, regardless of income, has multiple options about what's that. So what does that mean? That means that all these schools have to compete for students because they're not entitled to anybody. Parents have the power. And so if one school, if a charter school is doing well in Hillsborough County, Florida, well, you know what? The school district is going to have to start doing better too to be able to compete to do. So it's created a very positive environment where these schools are competing, where they're innovating. And what's the result? Florida now was #1 in 4th grade reading and 4th grade math. And so this is, and while that has all been going on, we still, because of my initiatives, we still raised teacher salaries and we still provided increased funding for school districts and charter schools alike. So we've proven it works. And there's no way you can look at Florida's experience over the last 20 years, compare it to California or New York or Illinois where they haven't embraced that, and their education's gone down while ours has gone up. So choice works, and once you do it, it's hard to undo because parents like it. And so I think in Florida now, after, with my governorship, I don't think these choice programs will ever be debated again. There's not going to be any Democrat that's going to be able to run saying that he's going to unwind all this, because you would not be able to get elected in the state going forward. So that just shows you it's been successful. So what do you do nationally? You don't mess with the K-12 that people are doing. Let them do that. But what we will do, and it's modeled after what we had in Florida initially, is we had a program for tax credits, scholarships through corporate income taxes. So corporations can write off a certain amount of their income tax liability. It goes to a scholarship organization, and then you distribute the scholarships to people that meet the criteria. We can do the same thing federally. So you don't even have to deal with the Department of Education, none of that, all through the Treasury, corporate tax credit. We did $1 billion a year in Florida. That was 100,000 students between administrative costs and scholarship. So if you do 25 billion, you're talking about, significant number of millions of students nationwide, and that's budget dust. So you may even be able to do a lot more than that. So we're going to do that the first year. We're going to put that in. And the thing is, Iowa, maybe it supplements some of the things you guys do, maybe Florida, but probably isn't going to be as big a need. But, we got these kids in Chicago and Philly. They've got no chance, because the school unions run these institutions and they don't care about the kids. We care about these kids, and we're going to help out.
Governor, thank you. I'm a mother and grandmother from Mississippi. I came to see you tonight because you earned my vote with the way you sincerely handled Florida. I've never seen anything like you take on the far left and really honor our conservative policies. I'm a mama bear. Thank you, Casey. Thank you. And being a grandmother that looks what's happening with our children, with our schools, the indoctrination, we are frightened. We are going so far left. We're scared. And could you please assure us, when you do get to Washington, how you're going to protect us?
Great. So the question was about protecting kids. And in Florida, we've had a lot of battles to do that. And it's important. And it's not always politically correct, but it's the right thing to do. So, for example, we did fight Disney to say that, no, it's not appropriate to tell a first grader that they can change their gender. That's wrong. We're not going to have that in the schools. We're going to ensure that we're focusing on the basics, and we're going to let kids be kids. We're going to make sure, I have 2 daughters, they have an ability to do athletics if they want to. We're not going to inject men into women's sports. We're going to make sure that we protect girls, and we've done that. We've also recognized that the whole idea of this gender ideology and being in gender fluidity, that's not good for this country. It's not good for society to have these elites trying to do that, and that has led to things like where they'll do these gender surgeries on minors. So you'll have people, and these are irreversible. And so you've had people like Chloe Cole, who's talked about, she went through it, and then she got older, and the dysphoria she had resolved itself, and so now she's trying to undo it, but the damage is likely going to be irreversible. So in Florida, we banned having any types of those mutilation procedures for minors. It's wrong. We're not going to do it. But I think it's just, we have to be rooted in truth in this country. Don't tell me that a man can get pregnant and expect me to believe that, because I won't. It's not true, and we can't do it. So, some of what you got to do as president is just speak the truth, make sure that you're willing to go out there and take important stands. And we've obviously done that in Florida, but I think it's much more powerful coming from the White House. So you can count on me to be a voice for protecting the innocence of our children. We need to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, the last question.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I mean, Israel's a strong ally of ours, and part of it is in that part of the world. It's a nasty part of the world. They're the only country that will be allied with us through thick and thin. They're the only country in that part of the world that is democratic and that shares our values. And that's the thing. It's a unique country given that we're a country founded on the Judeo-Christian tradition. So you go back and you look, and has anyone here ever been to Israel? Okay. So if you're able to get, so we went because when I was a U.S. congressman, they do trips. I did launch a trade mission as governor. So I've been many, many times. But the first time you ever go, you can actually go, you can open up a Bible, you could read, and you can be right there, right where you see. And so that piece of, that Holy Land is something that's really meaningful to not just the United States, but all of Western civilization, because that was the foundation of everything that's happened since then. So in that sense, I think it's something that it is a special relationship between us and Israel. And if you ever go and look at some of the holy sites, if Israel was not in control of those sites, you would not be able to exercise religious freedom and probably see. And in fact, Bethlehem is actually in one of the Palestinian Arab-controlled areas. So if you go to Bethlehem, I mean, it's honestly, I was really upset. It's a pigsty. Trash everywhere. It was nasty. They have a church where, I think it's where they think Christ was born. They built this beautiful church. So they have it there and everything, and you go in. Then you walk out, and they built this massive mosque towering over it, because that's just kind of what they do. So all these key sites, if Israel was not a sovereign over them, I don't know that they would even last if not. So I think they play an important role as a democracy in the Middle East, but also caretaker of some of the most important history known to man. Now, the relationship does not need to mean just an open checkbook, because honestly, they're not even asking for that. What they want more than anything is what Biden will not do, is to just have the president stand up there and say, we are not going to sit there and expect Israel to run the risk of a second Holocaust. Hamas wants to kill every Jew in Israel. That is wrong. And we would never, as Americans, accept someone right on our border that wanted to annihilate our entire country. We would never allow that. So they have every right to deal with the threat, because it's not just a threat over small things. It's a threat over the very survival of Israel, and it's to whether they will be able to prevent a second Holocaust. So what we say is, use your judgment, defend your people, and deal with the threat. What you don't do is second guess. What you don't do is go out and virtue signal to the United Nations. What you don't do is behind the scenes try to kneecap them. That is the most important thing than any type of money or anything else that they need. We just need moral clarity here. And the fact of the matter is, it is not an equivalence between a Hamas terrorist and an Israeli soldier who's just defending the people. That's just, we've got to be very clear on that.
I'll just add one thing that I know the governor agrees with. You don't keep writing a blank check to the United Nations and funding dollars going to Hamas.
Oh yeah, don't worry about that. We will. We'll be able to defund the United Nations when I'm president. I mean, this is just ridiculous. The anti-Semitism is absurd. And we're not going to do it. And that's the thing. I mean, I think that the amount of money that we just fritter away as a country, like we can't do this anymore. We've got huge problems here. We have our own border that is open. And you can't even control your own country. And, you're sending money to the United Nations. So we've got to start putting the American people first. And I think that ultimately, that's ultimately a deciding point for this election. Because I think, honestly, you have me representing kind of the bold colors of putting the American people first, standing for our conservative values. Then I think you have a lot of the other candidates, it's all about, pale pastels, it's about warmed over corporatism, and it's about putting the American people last. And that will not work, and we can't allow that to continue happening in this country. So the good news about that is you don't just got to sit around and throw your shoe at the TV screen and get upset and frustrated for everything that's going on. You actually have the power in your hands to do something about it on Monday night. So can we get this done? Can you go out there and bring it home? Let's do it. God bless you guys.